How could God possibly look on a world like ours and call it very good? Does he need glasses? And how could he create a world with so much pain and suffering in it and still be good himself? In philosophy, this is what is called the problem of evil. Volumes and volumes have been written about it. But the two creation stories put together give an answer to it. Not directly, but by implication. And they do it in a mere 800 words.
In a world of pain and heartache everywhere, do you ever feel you're drowning in despair?
As you remember, the creation story tells how God put humankind in a garden with all kinds of good fruit around to freely eat of. These represent our freedom of choice. We are allowed to do anything we liked, and all the possibilities were good, except one. As everything around us was good, we experienced and therefore knew goodness right from the start. We were surrounded by it. But originally, we were totally ignorant of evil because evil didn't exist yet. Let's go back to the case of the woman. Before she was made, everything was good thus far, but there was still something not good. So at that point in time, things were in a state of good and not good. The universe was 6 parts good and 1 part not. However, the last part that was not good was actually not something that had been made, but the last remaining part of the jigsaw puzzle, the bit needed for all the rest to come together. And this gives you the clue as to where evil comes from. Evil isn't something you create. It's the consequences of the gap left if you deliberately take away something that needs to be there. The gap will destroy a world that otherwise would be perfect. Because this has to come about deliberately and not just by accident, it's a choice. And we no longer talk about it as not good, we call it evil. We're using the language of morality, morals, because morals are all about choices. Put a hole in the universe, and the unharmed parts in themselves will still be good. But the void will damage all the rest, disrupt it, and leave you with a mixture of good and evil. Only God knew good and evil at first, because he knows all things right from the outside. Knowing what an evil world would be like, naturally he didn't want to make one. He made a universe that was good all the way through. But human knowledge, on the other hand, ultimately comes through experience, either our own or someone else's that's been put on paper for us to read. To know evil, we would have to make it first, and then we would begin to experience evil and know it that way. We'd taste the fruits of our own folly. And that is why we were allowed to do anything we liked except eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It was the source that made it possible for evil to come about. The one thing we were not allowed to do was destroy perfection. But we did it anyway. Evil, therefore, is not and was not created by God. It's the whole that arose when we deliberately chose the source of destruction, destroyed the core of creation, and turned the world into its present inseparable mixture of good and evil. The bits left untouched stayed good, but the gap we made was evil. And now the evil part is continually polluting all the rest and destroying more and more. How did we create evil then? When we chose to ignore God's command and go ahead and do the very thing he told us not to, we destroyed something absolutely vital about ourselves, absolutely vital to a perfect world. We destroyed, we deleted, we eradicated our own love. Now, to love God means to obey his commandments. so. To disobey God is to choose not to love him. Therefore, the very act of choosing to eat of the tree was in itself the one and the same thing as destroying our own love that was within us. Disobeying God changed our own natures, and then we stopped being like him. God is love. That is the supreme thing about him. And so he created us all as loving beings, able to pass on the same love that he is. That is the real point of being in God's image. It's not a question of appearance, it's a question of being like him. And we were once the same kind of loving beings that God is, the unending, enduring love that is patient, kind, envying no one, never conceited, always behaving fittingly, not self-seeking, never quick to take offence, not thinking up evil designs, not glad about wrongdoing, but putting up with things, expecting the best of others rather than the worst, standing firm and never failing. Once we deleted our own love, it was gone for good, and egoism, selfishness, and hatred filled the gap. They infected us and poisoned us and everything around us. Whose fault was that? Ours, not God's. Evil exists because we created it.